Hello and welcome to the video. This is a quick overview of this camera here. This is the Surfola SF530. Now I've seen this in lots of other videos and I've been looking for a GoPro style camera for lots of different models that I have here. But many of us don't have the money to keep putting £300, £400, £500 action cameras at the front of quads and planes, because when the inevitable happens, it gets really expensive really quick. So having something that's less expensive, not disposable, but less expensive, is a really interesting idea. Now this is purported to be a 4K camera and has dual screens and some other cool things. So I thought, let me get one in and have a look at how suitable it is for the hobby and what the performance is actually like. So again, this is the Surfola SF530. It's currently their flagship camera and it's about $90 on Amazon. That's only £10 more than the GoPro remote for their camera, so you get a whole camera system with lots of other stuff for kind of the same money. And I am going to show you what it's like with one of the older GoPros side by side in the 4K stuff, because in the playing here I have noticed something about the 4K footage. But before we get to that, timecode's down below. Let me talk about what this is. So this is capable of 4K 60 frames a second, 24 megapixel image sensor. It has EIS image stabilization. That isn't smoothing, it's just basic image stabilization. Has a dual screen with one at the front and one at the back, which means that if you're using it for selfies or recording to the camera, it works really well. Touchscreen on the back as well, although touchscreen is a little bit sluggish, but it does mean that it's very easy to navigate. And with a supplied case, it is waterproof up to 40 meters, and nicely also includes an external mic, which is something that for lots of people who want to do pieces to camera, that's a really cute option. iSmart DV2 app for your device, so you can turn on Wi-Fi for this thing and connect a phone to it to change settings and download files. And it also incredibly includes a Wi-Fi access and remote. So rather than having to buy that separately, that also comes in the box. So in the box, you get two 1050 milliamp hour rechargeable batteries with a charger. You get the wireless remote, you get a USB cable, you get the waterproof case, you get the dust back cover, you get a frame to hold it on, a handlebar mount, you get two adjustable pivot arms, two strap buckles, two flat mounts, a wrist strap, and one screw to hold it all together. So it's an amazing amount for the money. And there are lots of excellent reviews out there, but not necessarily focusing on specifically what radio control enthusiasts want. So let's test things like the resolution and also the image quality and things as well. So let me just show you some of the footage I've recorded here, and I'm not going to edit the audio file. The audio is as it comes out of the camera, so you can get an idea how well the mic works. Let me show you in a couple of different setups and resolutions.
So here we are walking with the camera on a handheld stick here. This is recording at 1080p 30 frames a second, and hopefully you get an idea of what the audio sounds like as well. I've done the minimum amount of editing to the audio so you can see how it's working. Now it's only about 18 inches away from my face, and I've got the front screen here so I can see exactly how it's all framed. That's a really nice feature. Now what I'm going to do is, just to see how it all performs, I'm going to flip you around and we'll have a quick look, because it's a nice bright day as you can see here. We've got beautiful blue sky behind me, nice clouds, so we've got some nice deep shadows too. So I'm only seeing this in the small screen, I'm kind of recording it as I'm doing it. So let me turn it round and I'll kind of show you the foliage and how it's handling all of the light. So let me just turn around, and again this is the audio direct from the camera that you're listening to, and you can see how it's handling the contrast and how quickly it's adjusting to the sky and how that is all working. So now we've tried that, let me up the resolution and let's try it in a slightly higher setting. We're on the 2.7K modes. So now we're recording in 2.7K at 30 frames a second. Image stabilization is turned on, and hopefully you can see how everything is looking. Now this time I'm going to kind of turn around and keep myself in frame so you can see what's happening. Now, I'm going to have a look at this on the computer when I get back, but it is blowing out the sky quite a little bit on this. But let's go up to the bridge, and what we'll do is we'll put it side by side with an older GoPro. This actually happens to be my GoPro Hero 7 Black Edition, and we'll record side by side in 4K, and let's have a look at how they compare, because I'm really interested to see whether this is a true 4K camera or not.
So the last footage, which I think is the most telling, is to compare the 4K performance with a relatively old GoPro camera. We use the GoPro Hero 7 Black. It's the latest one that I have here. Let's put them side by side and do some of a comparison. Very quickly you can see the difference. Even on the wide setting, the view is nowhere near as wide as on the GoPro. Now all that's configurable, but you'll also notice that in comparison with something like the GoPro, the clarity of the colors, the contrast, the saturation isn't as good. But it's when you zoom into the image, and this is 4K 60 frames a second, that the shortcomings of this camera really start to appear. And although the sensor, talking to them, is capable of 4K, more of that in a moment, you can see where the extra money is coming from on the more expensive cameras. So in terms of the pros, well, the pros are the price. This is a cute dual screen camera that's capable of basic 4K. Other modes are better in my humble opinion. It provides reasonable audio, but will clip it as well, and there's a bit of noise there too. But the fact that you get everything you need, including 2 batteries and a battery charger in a box with all the different mounts and stuff, means that you are ready to go with the one purchase. All you need is an SD card. Cons for this, it does feel a little bit plasticky. The build quality is nowhere near what you'd pay for some of the bigger cameras, but then we've got to be a little bit realistic here. This is an awful lot cheaper. The EIS is average, and there isn't any stabilization on board, and unfortunately there isn't any gyro data. I have fed that back to Surfola as something we need in the hobby. Now you could stabilize it, of course, in post using something like gyro flow with the gyro data from your flight controller if you're using it on a model, but it's not there straight out the box. And although it does record in up to 4K 60 frames a second, you've seen that the performance of that image isn't great. And the audio is a bit muffled and flat. And sadly, it is physically a little bit different from the GoPro size of cameras. So some of the places in some of the models that I have here, like the nose of this dolphin, it doesn't fit in the same way that a GoPro would. So my final thoughts, this has no real smoothing options unless you try and use the gyro data from a flight controller or something like gyro flow in post. And the 4K performance isn't great due to the use of the IMX386 inside here. That's about 3 times less than the cost of things like the IMX57 used in cameras like the GoPro 10. So not all 4K cameras are created equally. And also with some of the image processing isn't going on in here that GoPro's using to make it look better too. And that means that the color and saturation aren't as crisp, but you could boost that in post-production. For the radio control hobby, I'd have been happy to lose a few of the extra features to get gyro data and a better 4K image out of the camera. Maybe the SF530 is the one that's going to be a better fit for radio control. But if you're not interested in using it for that and you just want it as kind of a selfie camera or a cheap camera to go in places where it's less of a disaster if it gets involved in a crash and be happy with the lower performance of the video, then this means that you get everything you're going to need in one box. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organized into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.